Beyond.
Beyond.
That is the name of the show. It is Beyond. Number 485. My goodness. That's so many of them.
They grow up so fast. What an old man that
Wowzers.
is.
Jiminy Crimbus. Anyway, I'm Max Scoville. That's Brian Altano.
Hey.
That's Marty Sleva.
Hello.
And joining us is Miranda Sanchez.
Hello.
What's up? What's going on, everybody?
Sonic.
Wow, you really rolled it.
We got like one email that was like, I liked that really unprofessional intro you did, so I'm sticking with it.
Get used to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, perfect.
Ooh,
We're
structure.
doing it.
Anyway, Mass Effect Andromeda is the big thing we're going to be talking about today. Is it out? Are people playing it?
It's out. Yeah,
It's
but
out.
yeah, it's out today.
It's out today. Okay.
Yeah.
So,
It was
It's out.
tough to tell because it was like so many retailers broke the street date on this thing.
Well, and also if you had an Xbox, you could play it on EA Early
Right,
Access,
right,
like first 10
Origin.
hours.
Yeah.
Or Origin, yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
now, Miranda, you've been working on the guides for this.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm very tired.
Yeah. Yeah,
I'm
you've been-
so
All right,
tired.
and you're like a huge Mass Effect fan, right?
Yeah, I love them. I've played through the series twice, which is not a lot, but I played it for the first time last year, and I finished my first playthrough in a month of all 3 games.
Oh, wow.
So I
Wow,
love
that's
them a
intense.
lot.
Yeah.
So what's your take
Wow.
on Andromeda? Because a lot of people are seeing it as like, I don't know, a disappointment, but I think it's not quite up to the same like gold standard as the rest of the series. And
For sure.
Yeah.
So my biggest disappointment was going in and not having those big character introductions, or that's at least what stood out to me within the first 10 hours or so.
like in the movie Suicide Squad.
Yeah, of course. Just
God.
like that. So a lot of people just like happen to be on your ship or like, hey, you're shooting and I'm shooting, so let's just team up. Which I think is a really big disappointment because I think, or at least for me, one of the biggest strengths of Mass Effect is its characters and how they introduce
Right.
it and the bonds that you get through them
Yeah.
over the 3 games. And of course, this isn't going to have the same thing within
right.
3 games and compile into one, but just the way that they're introduced just doesn't allow you as much time with each of them.
Yeah.
Which I think is a really big shame because then you don't really get to know them unless you make the effort to go and know them.
Yeah, and that's a huge difference, especially from Mass Effect 1, which is the only Mass Effect I played before Andromeda, which I just finished. But so quickly in that game, I mean, in that first mission, you get to know Caden and Ashley, who both kind of suck. One of them's a racist, and one of them will die at the end of the game, so it's fine. But then on the Citadel, like 2 hours into the game, you meet Rex and Garrus, who were both awesome and probably my 2 favorite characters in the game. And so quickly you were introduced to these characters who have this amazing dynamic with each other, and like you start learning more about them and their view of the universe as a whole and sort of what their species have gone through throughout history, which as of I'm about 6 hours into Andromeda, I just haven't really gotten. And it's also weird because whereas playing the original Mass Effect, it feels like you're discovering all these new races and these new species, and you're like, oh, well, why do these two hate each other? And what was the genophage about? And what was all this about? Whereas here, it feels like it's like, well, these are all the same aliens. And I feel like the universe is so big that I should be introduced to just constant streams of new things.
So
Right.
there are reasons for that. Like it's not necessarily a good excuse maybe for why they could have at least had a few more races native to Andromeda, but there are believable reasons as to why there's not, which I don't really want to spoil because it is
Sure.
story details.
But they justify it.
Yeah, I mean, like they don't come out and say this is why we don't have more
Yeah,
races
yeah.
here. But it's if you put the logic together in your head, you're like, okay, well, I could see why.
Yeah.
Because like a big point of this game is going and colonizing worlds, but you have to make them habitable first because it's like, hey, if you go outside, your blood's gonna boil in 17 seconds.
Yeah.
So
How do you
don't
make
do
it
that.
habitable?
Yeah, the whole,
You just like put like a nuke in its core or something?
it's weird.
so
Some
there-
Elon Musk insanity.
Yeah.
So mildish spoilers. So the idea is that you go to these ancient civilization AI race tech, and they have abilities to alter the weather. And so that's how you make them habitable.
You
It's
get that
like,
on the opening
hey,
mission. Okay,
yeah.
so that's sort
so
of
it clears the radiation on the first planet, and then another one makes it like way less cold, or
Yeah.
kind of
You're terraforming
yeah,
basically.
exactly.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
that's why, and like I could see why there's not as much life if that's what's happening.
Sure.
It's like
They
if it's
kind of-
struggling to survive.
Yeah.
Like
then,
from the get-go, they kind of
know.
introduce this as being like, oh, this is like a far cry from the previous games in that like they open up with that like Ghost Riders in the sky, like the idea that you're gonna be like, oh, you're exploring like new territory. This is a
Yeah.
whole new galaxy, but it also doesn't. It seems like they're still kind of playing it close to home. Like they're throwing in a lot of familiar
Yes.
Yeah.
bits and pieces.
there are themes that are very recognizable. It's like, oh, I remember this from this other game because we kind of did something similar.
Yeah, it feels to me, again, having only played the opening like a lot less than you have, it feels very Force Awakens-y in terms of sort of retreading a lot of the same ground, but I don't think it's quite as effective as Force Awakens.
That's funny because I was going to ask you sort of like that scene in Rogue One where they zoom in on the blue milk and they're like, remember that?
Yeah.
You guys like that, right?
In this case, it's a blue woman.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are so many references to the original trilogy. Like we have a page going, which you should check on our wiki.
Yeah.
We're all hard on it. And there's a lot of really great stuff there that's subtle. Like if you didn't know, it wouldn't really matter.
Right.
But if you do, then it's like, oh, I remember that time that thing happened to that person. And
So does
it
that
was terrible.
feel good though? Like those references, or does it feel
Yeah.
like kind of ham-fisted?
No, I like them a lot.
Oh, good. Good.
And like you do actively have to go and look for them. Like there are a lot of side quests that has that, or like maybe you'll find a character who's related to another character, and like unless you dig deeper in the conversations, they don't confirm that.
Yeah.
But if you just know the name, so it's like say you know the name of a certain Turian, not from your like a side quest Turian, then you're like, oh, this person's related to that person. That's so cool, and then you kind of figure out why they're there and all this other
Yeah,
stuff.
so you were explaining it is sort of a weird pre-sequel to Mass Effect 3.
Yes. So on the timeline, the Andromeda Initiative leaves the Milky Way towards the end of Mass Effect 2.
Okay, so Commander Shepard, whether it's a male or female, which you get to choose when you make a character, which I think is cool.
So it's important to make a character, like even if you're just playing default writer, either Scott or Sarah, like it is important to make your character because you get to choose a lot of stuff. Side note. But
But then so you leave, the Andromeda mission leaves near the end of 2,
yes.
and then it's like hundreds of years into the...
It takes them 600 years to get there. So they're just like in stasis pods and then wake up. It's like, oh, 600 years later.
So the events of 3 are over, but they don't really know
They have no way,
outcome.
as far as we know, of knowing what happened.
Okay. So that sounds overly complicated. You know, if you're trying to get new people involved in a franchise, it sounds like that's just kind of like, well, the Assassin's Creed problem of like still kind of tying it to previous stuff. And it's possible to have elements that are there to appeal to fans of the series, but like I feel like doing it this way is just immediately kind of like, wait, did I miss something? Am I late to the party on this?
I think it sounds more confusing and convoluted than it is.
Yeah, I mean, like,
in
no one's
theory.
going to come out and tell you, hey, they left at the end of Mass Effect 2. Like, it doesn't really note that. So it's confusing if you're paying attention to the details if you weren't.
I guess I was just sort of hoping that this would be like either like a hard prequel or a hard reboot type of thing. Sure. Like, the way it was early, like pitched early on of it being like, oh, you're exploring these frontier planets sounded really cool. Like the idea of it being set way, way before the Mass Effect series, before like the mass relays in effect, no pun intended, is just to be like, oh, you're going to help colonize these planets and help terraform them. But like it's after the Mass Effect. Yeah, I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah.
It just, the offshoot. Just like, they just went,
I mean,
timeline, boop.
Yeah. So Joel Myers from the Facebook group asks, would you recommend Mass Effect Andromeda to someone who's never played a Mass Effect game?
I think you can play this just fine.
Yes. So
would you recommend it?
I would recommend it.
Yeah,
I mean,
it seems cool so far.
I really like this game. So like we haven't gotten to that point, but sure, this is not to the same caliber of the original trilogy. But with that said, I still really like this game. Combat's a ton of fun. I like exploring. I really like the character missions. Like once you get past the initial 10 hours, whatever, it does open up a lot more. And as you get to know the characters, like they really start standing out.
Yeah. I took a leap in mechanics from Mass Effect 1 to this is just night and day.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, like if I would have played 2 and 3, it would have been a gradual climb to here. But like the shooting feels good, the cover feels good. I like the powers. Everything feels sort of streamlined, but still RPG-ish.
Even stuff I've seen from the jump from 3 to this seems like it's a pretty huge departure.
Yeah, it's way different because all other Mass Effects have been based on a class. So you pick one, you get locked in. You can only do set abilities and use set weapons unless you get certain perks. But this one's just like, hey, do you want to use any of the powers? Go for it.
You have to choose something.
That's fun.
It's like Dark Souls where you choose a class at the beginning, but like ultimately after a couple levels you could be whatever you want. Like it's totally fine.
And then you can change your your specialization class at any time, and like there's a lot of flexibility with that I really enjoy.
Yeah.
Is it like proper kind of open world, or is it like does it feel a little bit like Inquisition in that there's like different worlds to explore?
Like nodes you can sort of.
Oh, there's like very big open worlds. There's
the
like
planets are
5
huge.
places that are massive.
Yeah.
Wow.
Cool.
Yeah, the
Or at
planets
least
are
3
way
of them are
bigger than
pretty
anything.
massive.
So we've seen a lot of backlash against the character models and the animation. Some of that reaction has gotten downright toxic, which is disgusting. Don't do that. And if you know someone doing that, punch them in the mouth.
Yeah.
Do you think this is overblown? Like the amount of people that are really making this a big deal?
There are
or-
definitely like weird moments where like, And then it's like, oh, having played this on PC and Xbox, like, oh, that looked way better on PC than it does on Xbox.
Interesting.
But I mean, I think some of the criticism is absolutely fair, but it is way overblown.
Yeah.
I think it's also they're shifting from whatever the old engine was to Frostbite, which all EA games are on now, and that was developed by DICE for shooters. I don't think it was made for doing cutscenes and whatnot.
Yeah, and I mean, they have so many character models. It's like, how are you going to make all of them perfect? Like, this is, I was talking before, it's like, this is not Uncharted where they have like 5 main characters that are important to animate.
Right.
So you're going to talk to so many people that, like, I mean, just look at Fallout. It's not perfect either.
Yeah. Right.
But, like, sure, there are like really exaggerated motions that are unnatural. Like, I'm not going to cover that up.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Like, it's
Of course.
weird, but it's not.
It's not game breaking.
Gonna
by
break
any
the
means.
game. Yeah.
Does the voice acting kind of make up for that? Is the voice acting
Yes,
strong?
I love the voice acting. Like,
That's
across
great.
the board, like even minor characters. I mean, sometimes you'll hear like a random person shouting in the background. Sounds a little weird.
I'm reloading.
Every once in a while, you'll also come across like a known like voice actor, celebrity. Like you got to like Kumail Nanjiani's
Sarah Jessica Parker.
character, and I'm like, oh, it's you.
Oh, that's so
Hello,
cool.
Kumail.
Cool.
Yeah, so that definitely gives more of expression because it's so well done. So
Right.
I think that helps a lot.
I think the reception is especially a weird one because partially there was that whole debacle surrounding Mass Effect 3's ending and people getting mad about that and just people kind of having.
seriously.
I mean,
just like,
it's
please.
such like just an epic, like for the most part, really good series ended on such a down note, and
Yeah.
there was so much like hatred and vitriol floating around for that. And then this is kind of coming out like if this was a brand new game, I feel like people would be more receptive to it almost, but. Would it have gotten made on this scale if it were?
Yeah,
Probably not.
Probably not.
Yeah.
I mean, it's also like it's a victim of like crappy timing, just in terms of this Q1 has been a sort of remarkable quarter for video games just across
Especially
the board.
open world games.
Especially open world games.
The last 2 we've had, right?
Yeah, but I mean, even starting with like Gravity Rush. Like Gravity Rush was this incredible way to start the year, going into Resident Evil, and then a bunch of people loved For Honor and Wildlands, which
Neo,
none of us really
Horizon,
played.
Zelda, Night in the Woods, and we're getting Persona around the
yeah,
corner.
like it's insane. So to have to piggyback on Horizon and Zelda, especially, I feel like you're just sort of damned.
Yeah, especially because it's always been Mass Effect's always been kind of jack of all trades, like master of none. It's like people play it for different reasons, but like it's this is not like a open world go do anything kind of thing. This is an RPG and a shooting game and a story game kind of all rolled into this. They're trying to do a lot here.
Yeah, for sure. And it shows like this thing could have been better, but then we had this 20 other things to do, which I think is also fine. Like if you just want to spend 100 hours in this world, you totally can.
Yeah, I was going to ask. I mean, do you think this is the kind of game that could have like benefited from another 6 or 7 months of development, or is it? You think so?
I mean, like they have a lot of stuff to patch. Like we've run into bugs that stop missions. Like you just can't.
Oh, wow.
It's only happened twice, and that was before they started releasing patches. But I know that they're very actively working on fixing what people are complaining about or what they have qualms with.
And I mean, it sucks.
Which is
Just at the end of the day, it's a publicly traded company is beholden to its investors.
Yeah.
And so I'm imagining this is a thing where it got pushed a couple times. They're like, you got to get out by the end of the fiscal quarter.
You got to make it. I mean, I don't think any of us could even begin to understand how complex creating something like this is.
Oh,
so.
yeah.
No, absolutely. And we have like friends who went into game dev and they're like, guys, we don't know anything from this side, like until you get to the other side.
Well, I mean, that's all business, and it's very boring. So let's talk about what we really want to talk about. Gabriel Indrago says, "How many aliens have you had sex in ME?" Which is a really weird way of.
Oh, he totally wrote, "How many aliens have you had sex
How
in
many
me?"
aliens have you had sex in me?
You got
and
like
I was
so
like,
worked up right in that. You got kind of off topic there.
We're answering that because
so
I don't
you're
know
working
how
on
many
the
aliens have had
romance
sex
side,
in
right?
him.
Yeah, so one of the biggest things for us on Wikis is making sure we get that romance going.
The ones
There's
the ones
so
from
many
like
people.
from 2 and 3 were like they were pretty PG-13. Like they were like
It's like
steamish, and I saw like part of one of these on IGN, which was using Dan Stapleton's review character who looked like Raggedy Andy.
Yeah.
Or like one of the
Wet Bandits. Did you post that? Yeah.
Yeah,
He looks like Mad Max Carrot Top. Like,
really awful.
it's disturbing.
And so he's just like
What's wrong with you, Dan?
he's just all having sex, and there's like butt cheeks and nudity, and I was just like,
there
this is weird.
nudity, and I think they're done really well. Like there's this scene you get with PB. So most of these scenes you get 2 parts. Like either it's a relationship thing of romance, or like more of a romantic scene versus sexual scene, and then you'll eventually get a sexual scene for most of these, which I like. Is it creates a little bit more nuance. Like there's only this is not a dating game. Like, they have made it very clear. It's like this is a action RPG. This is not about the dating, though we do put a focus on dating.
It's an RPG
and, like,
where you
making
get some
sure.
action is what it is. Hey.
And the few scenes that I have seen are really tasteful, I think. Like I like that. Of course, a big part of that is consent too. Like they constantly stop like, hey, do you want to do this? Or This is the kind of relationship you want.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, like there's this one culmination scene that I don't want to spoil completely, but the character asks you like if you want to have sex or just leave it to be like a romantic scene with just them, but commit to a relationship, and you can totally do that.
Which games don't really, especially like big AAA games, don't really do. You just sort of just beats you over the head with a message.
It's like, well, you're getting sex now. It's
yeah,
okay.
yeah. And it's like it's open in terms of like different species and different genders.
Yeah, and there's different kinds of relationships. Like some people don't care if you're in another relationship. They're like, I can just be a side thing. No one has to know.
Yeah.
Wow, that's cool. That's a good mechanic to introduce. Just want to do my spaceship. I gotta bleep that word.
Yeah, like a lot of it ends up being with side characters, but there's one that's just like, hey, I want this to be casual.
Yeah.
And like you can say, I don't want it to be, and she's like, all right.
I think that when games are sort of exploring this theme in a dozen or so years, we're going to look at this one like it was a big step forward for it. If you think about games in the 90s, it was always just like misogynistic Duke Nukem characters coming up.
You almost called him Duck Nukem.
Hey, baby, you want to get laid?
Like,
just gross. Like he's like, hey, I've got a car and it's full of money. Like it's just the worst.
But it's funny that like, yeah, this is progressive, and it's progressive because it's just somewhat realistic.
Yeah.
Like it's just
that's all it
nice.
takes.
like that's the thing is you just need to be simple and realistic. Like this is how it is. Some people are totally fine with something casual.
Like the reality of most sexual relationships is they're very just kind of simplistic, straightforward, and I'm not boring per se, but just like it's not as just completely insane and as over the top as I think games tried to make them for the longest time.
Yeah.
So our idea of what a realistic sex scene would look like in a game has never been just as sort of natural and understanding as it should be.
Yeah,
So,
I tweeted out a joke that I was 5 hours in the game and haven't got to have sex with anything, and that I was upset. And someone was like, someone called me out for being a misogynist and being like, "Oh, you don't have sex with someone after you meet them for 5 hours." And I'm like, I'm not actually upset, but also I do sort of, and also I have.
Person to person. So
That's a cute outlook on life.
Yeah.
Anyway, Mass Effect Andromeda. You got all these guides and whatnot. Is this going to be like an ongoing thing? Do
Yeah.
you have to chip away at this
I'm
forever?
going to be on this for probably another month.
Wow.
Then Persona,
I'm not doing Persona, thankfully.
you just get to enjoy it as a
Yeah,
human
just gonna
being.
play it and have a fun time.
That's good. Cool.
That's good. Yeah.
So moving on, we got Dark Souls 3, the Ringed City DLC.
Yeah.
What's up with this?
So this is coming out on the 28th, which is what I guess next week.
Yeah.
This is the final DLC for Dark Souls 3, which is in theory the last Souls game, which means this is the final Souls thing ever.
you know what that means?
That's not true.
Bloodborne 2.
No, I mean that also means Bloodborne 2, which we'll get to, but also this is the last Souls game.
No.
'Cause it turns out money is more powerful than
There's no
Souls.
way. Why would they ever do that? I mean, that'd be like denying themselves the money, denying the audience something awesome. There's no reason to do that.
And I was sort of underwhelmed by the last piece of DLC, but everything I've played from this and seen from this, especially, I watched Chloe play a ton of it, is awesome because, like, first off, it is pretty much follows like Paradise Lost and Dante's Inferno.
Holy crap.
Like you are going like literally towards the apocalypse, and the
Wow.
apocalypse is this. It's called the Ring City because it's every world throughout time is folding into itself.
Oh my
And as
Lord.
you go down the layers of this Ring City, which literally looks like Inception or Doctor Strange, like the city is like folding in on itself.
Like Dark
So-
City?
Like Dark City, yeah. But the thing is, as you go down the Ringed City, you are going down the history of the Souls games. So like the upper crust is ostensibly Dark Souls 3, and then you got down to an area that's the Ashen Peak from Dark Souls 2.
Oh, that's so cool.
And what I just assume is at the bottom is some like Dark Souls 1 First Flame, like
Yeah.
OG Gwyn, like all that stuff we're looking for. And gameplay wise, what we've played is super cool, and it's pulling in even certain stuff from Bloodborne. Like you remember the Gatling gun dude at Bloodborne,
Yep.
and you're just like you enter this area and you're like, well, this is a puzzle for me to have to figure out how do I get this dude off this tower because he's literally just spraying everywhere.
I hate him.
I entered this area with this. I'm
It's one of my favorite moments in that game, by the way, because I snuck up behind the ladder and he went to shoot me and then he fell and committed suicide. And I got up there and I was like, yes, my tower.
Those games are such a weird roll of the dice where either you're going to have a boss fight that keeps you like swearing at your TV for 6 hours
Yep.
straight, or he's
That'll-
going to walk
Something
off the
weird's gonna
ledge.
happen.
And you're like-
I've seen so many instances of like,
Yes.
here's like the last boss and he tripped. And you're like, what? What?
Yeah.
Thank you. Clumsiness.
But like this one was just, it was this like floating angel who just, instead of having a Gatling gun, it was just a constant stream of light arrows. And so you're like ducking from cover to cover and you're trying to find, it's ultimately controlled by this one little like sissy shaman in a corner. And so instead of fighting the angel, you just have to fight the sissy shaman. And once you kill him, the angel's like, all right, I'm gone.
What?
Really good. Yeah. And then there was a boss that was, it was called the Demon in Pain and the Demon from Below. And it's these two like Bahamut gargoyle looking fools that you had to fight.
Ah, man.
Yeah. Bahamut.
I think I still have my ones.
Did you really?
What, like a county fair?
Did they finally reveal who let the dogs out?
Who let the Dark Souls? Oh, see.
Okay.
That's a free advertising campaign.
Yeah, I'm sure From Software is definitely Miyazaki-san really loves that.
Wow.
That joke's so bad I did a hand phone.
Yeah,
for
don't
it.
do that.
Call me on the old hand phone.
But no, if this is really the last Souls thing, we know From Software is currently working on several things. Like, what do you want to see? What do you want to see next?
Before we
Bloodborne
move
2.
on, if this is the last DLC for the Souls, like that's awesome.
Yeah.
That is a great way to send it off. To
Because
look back at everything.
and it sounds. Yeah, I was about to say it's totally this like embracing the last 3 games and just going all into it.
And to be like completely honest, like if this was the last Dark Souls game, that's totally fine.
Like,
Yeah.
Like I think there's a point when you want to stop making something, like even though if people want it, like let it have its end.
Yeah.
I mean,
like,
let
move
it-
on to something new.
Let this be Return of the King and not don't give us the Hobbit. Trilogy.
Yeah.
Like
Well,
that kind of
Or
thing.
go back to it like next generation, you know?
Yeah.
I think what we've seen with Bloodborne and even games like Neo is that you can take that formula and bring it into a new
Yeah.
direction.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think when I recoiled at the idea of them not making another Dark Souls, it's them just going on and making, I don't know, like a rhythm game would really piss me off. But
That'd be great.
Interesting.
Or not.
Yeah.
or not. But no, I do want to see them do more stuff in not necessarily this style, but with that sort of like
They
that
created
level
a
of
genre
combat.
pretty much.
Yeah,
right?
they did.
Yeah. In which, I mean, you mentioned Bloodborne 2 earlier. I don't think there's a world where we're not getting a Bloodborne 2.
I
Yeah.
cannot wait.
Can we get some Armored Core again? Like,
I would like Miyazaki's talked about wanting to go back to that. Like, I would love this sort of game, but with mechs.
yeah.
Like, and imagine if there was like,
I'd play the hell out of that.
yeah, but imagine if it was also because I don't think Armored Core never took into account that you were obviously a human. I assume you were a human driving the mech, right? It wasn't like sentient mechs.
They were mechs, yeah. You could customize them.
So like,
arms
it would be
for 'em
cool if there was like 2 levels of gameplay where it's like you're the person and you're doing things. Like, I would love a.
So that's always been like one of my favorite, just kind of. It feels like playing with like old G.I. Joe toys or like Micro Machines or
Yeah.
something where there's the big thing. There's like the level to it. That's what I love about Titanfall. That's what I wanted to love about I think it was like Lost Planet 3.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that like something that's threatening to you or just is completely unstoppable as like a regular sized person, then suddenly you go back and it's like, oh no, this is a different scale for me. You know?
Yeah, totally. I've always wanted sort of a kaiju game like that that's has the flow of like Persona, where you are a regular person throughout and you do regular person stuff, whether it's, whether you're high school or like in Evangelion going to
give me
school
a
and having
video
relationships. But then at the end, instead of like going into like the what's it
Sorry,
called?
I gotta go home and cry into my Walkman while this jean shorts wearing cougar
Yeah,
hits on me,
yeah.
and my dad doesn't love me, and I play the cello.
But instead of going to like the dungeons in like a Persona game, you are getting into your mech or your Ava and you are fighting kaiju. Like, I would love that.
You should play Blaster Master.
I should, yeah.
Yeah.
But you don't like go on relationships in that.
You
Right?
you have a car named Sophia.
Are you in a relationship with your car?
You might be dating her.
What are you talking about?
If you
There's a car
believe
in
you can.
Bla- in-
You can do
yeah.
anything.
Blaster Master, it's like 50% of that game is a car. The other part,
car. Is it?
Yeah, I mean it's a
like a
it's a
little tank.
vehicle with wheels.
it's a 4-wheeled
Never
vehicle.
thought about
That's
that as a car.
It's a car. We're getting in the weeds here.
What kind of-
What
is
cars
it-
are
is a
great
tank
at.
a
They could
car?
drive right through it.
I think it's a
Well,
truck.
tank does,
Yeah.
I think tank has a tread, so I wouldn't consider
It's
it a
kind
car.
of a car.
Ooh, yeah, I guess so.
It's like a kank.
Is a burger a sandwich?
Yeah.
Don't say kank. Yeah, is a burger a sandwich?
That's real weird.
Is it
Hot dog?
bestiality if
I'm
you have
not
sex with
doing
an
that. I'm not
alien?
doing it. No.
What? You don't want to talk about the bestiality question?
Sex with an alien
No,
is a
it's like
sandwich.
sentient and has opinions and emotions.
Dogs are sentient though.
Opinions and emotions that
Dogs
can
have emotions? Oh.
vocalize
Yeah,
and
they bark. They poop.
establish a community and
Okay.
society.
A dog has a
I'm not
purpose.
trying to like get around. No, stop talking about the dog's
I'm
purpose.
just thinking about the certain article that I thought about with Mass Effect.
Yeah, I mean, my thing is, I'm not trying to like, I'm not trying to condone having sex with a dog because I don't want to have sex with a dog because I'd get very sick.
Thanks for saying that publicly. I'm
Yeah.
glad you include your name on that one.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, I'm the only one who's on record not wanting to have sex with a dog.
Then none of us want to,
nobody wants to have
clearly.
sex with
It's
a
a
dog
given
here.
that that's not what anyone wants.
All right, well, you guys
I
followed
just want to
suit.
pet a dog.
I know that'd be really nice.
Pet
All
a
right,
really
so
good
here's a
dog.
good segue. Disney The Afternoon Collection is coming out.
Not a good segue at all.
No, that's a pretty good segue.
What if you have sex with a duck?
Life is like a hurricane. Quack, quack, quack. April 18th, $20. You get Chippendale's Rescue Rangers, Chippendale Rescue Rangers 2, Darkwing Duck, DuckTales, DuckTales 2, and Tailspin.
Yeah. All NES games, by the way.
Yes.
Yeah.
Remastered. They look fantastic in
1080p.
1080p pixel art. There's concept art, sketches. Well, this was put together by the same team that worked on the Mega Man collection, specifically Frank Cifaldi.
Yeah, who we
Who's
partnered
been
with
recently.
for Save
Super
Point.
awesome
Yeah.
guy. I'm really geeked about this because Chippendale's Rescue Rangers, first of all, let's go through this list, is one of the original sort of awesome couch co-op games. It's one of the first, if not the first, co-op platforming game. I played this a ton as a kid with my brother.
Yeah. Like co-op simultaneous, not like you're Mario, you die, and I'm Luigi.
And if you look at stuff like New Super Mario Brothers and Little Big Planet, where you can like pick up characters and throw them, pick up other things and throw them, this is a precursor to that. And it's got this sort of like weird Honey, I Shrunk the Kids thing, where like apples are bigger than you, and there's giant trash cans.
The apples were way too big because like, an apple isn't that much bigger than a
You
chipmunk.
never know. Apples get pretty big.
Yeah,
Or chipmunk? Are these chipmunks just very small?
the scale is a mess in this game. But spoilers, this game has one of my favorite final bosses of all time, which is a fat cat in a business suit who put cigar ashes on you. Like he tries to kill you with a cigar, and he's just like, and he's sitting at his desk like drinking gin or whatever.
Rated T for some tobacco use and mild partying.
Rescue Rangers 2 is a little more polished. I really like that game. Darkwing Duck, I think is probably the
game of
the bad egg, if you will, of the group.
I get it.
And DuckTales and DuckTales 2 are fantastic.
Darkwing Duck is just kind of like a little platform where you got a gun in that, right?
Yeah.
Grapple gun.
Aren't there flying missions too? Or am I thinking Tailspin?
Tailspin is almost all flying.
Yeah, Tailspin's almost all flying missions. It's basically a shmup, which is really cool.
Yeah.
But DuckTales and DuckTales 2 are almost Metroidvania-esque action platforming games where they're very non-traditional in their controls. You have to pogo stick hop to like
basically
land on
where
people.
Shovel Knight came from.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Unabashedly.
So they're adding boss rush, time attack. There's a rewind feature, which is really cool.
And that's like,
Disney
because these
Museum.
games are hard as piss. And so
Right.
the rewind feature is like, it's like very hardened piss. Like real just.
Do
It's
you
like
have
a
a problem
cat.
peeing?
It's like a cat piss thing.
No, it's like what happens is, if you. So yeah, you're able to rewind, and if you like die, you.
I love
go
that
back
that's the
right
thing
before
that they're
you
doing
die.
without. It's not just nerfing a game. It's adding this like layer to it. Like I was playing one of the rare replay games. I think that has that. I was playing
Battletoads.
Duke Nukem 3D.
Yeah.
You love Battletoads.
I don't
You
love
that game.
Battletoads. We don't talk about that game. No, we
Marty
don't.
loves
No, we
the
don't.
Battletoads.
It reminds
He
me of
loves
you,
those.
Marty.
No, stop
Every
it.
time.
Angry black
Stop it.
frogs.
Don't ever say that.
So if you see Marty at any upcoming trade shows, be sure to
People
flag
do that
him
at
down.
every
I
show.
love it. It's so much fun for me.
It is
They're like, are
awful.
you going to be at PAX East? I'm like, no, I'm not, but Marty is. So if you see him, be sure to ask about Battletoads.
We have Washington D.C. is currently full of Battletoads. This is not funny anymore.
I think it's pretty funny.
We're currently run by rashes, zits, and pimples.
But yeah, I was playing Duke Nukem 3D on my Vita because I was waiting for my Switch to show up and it got delayed and I was like, I'm angry. I'm going to play Titty City or whatever that first level's called, Red Light Disaster. But yeah, like it's great because you just rewind it and I'm like I have no idea how that works in a video game. But to go back and revisit something like DuckTales where it's like, oh, I just got my ass handed to me in 3 frames, like being able to back that up. And
So this is interesting enough, not a catch-all for every Capcom Disney game that came to the NES. Stuff like Mickey's Mousecapade and Little Mermaid are not here. This is specifically games that got a Disney Afternoon TV show. And if you don't remember, the Disney Afternoon was the best thing. It was the reason to get through school.
that's
like
actually
you would
what
get out of school.
kept us from doing crack, honestly.
Yeah, seriously. I was going to do a lot of crack after
People would be
school.
like, hey, you want to come do some crack behind the building? We'd be like, no thanks. I got to see what old Gizmo Duck and those...
Like
Crack was pretty big in like the late 80s.
Yeah,
but like,
that's true.
I don't feel like you were offered a ton of it.
You'd come home from
You don't know
school, you'd run away from the crack, and then you'd sit in front of the TV with like a big bowl of like cereal, or you'd get like Gushers or like string thing.
Yeah, but then
and
they
you'd,
like-
eat,
I thought you were just going to say a big bowl
of crack. You had a big bowl of crack.
Yeah, I feel like this was like the 30 to 35-year-olds version of like what Toonami was.
Yeah.
So like the
Totally.
25 to 30-year-olds where
Yep.
you'd come home
Yeah.
and watch like Dragon Ball Z and Sailor Moon and
Hey.
Tenchi
Yep.
Muyo. Yeah.
There you go.
me.
So,
But then there was the follow-up stuff. There's a bunch of other Disney games that you've got this sequel idea.
Yeah, for a 16-bit version.
Yep.
Aladdin
fantastic.
for SNES, which everyone always
Yes.
argues about which version's better.
I played it
Well,
the
on
Genesis
Genesis
version's
when I was
better.
a baby.
So
Yeah.
Genesis, you have a sword, right?
Did you play the Genesis version?
Je-
I was a little kid and I remember playing it, but I didn't know I was
So
doing
the
it.
Genesis version is kind of widely regarded to be the better one, which
Yeah.
in most cases in
That's
cross-platform games from that
I'm here
era.
now.
Yeah.
Really?
I played the right one
That's
when I was a child.
yeah, that's the one by the Earthworm Jim team and like
Great.
Dave Perry and Shiny, and it was like hand-drawn animations by
Yep.
Disney.
Yep.
But the SNES one was Shinji Mikami's first game.
Which is like,
right,
yeah.
it's very fascinating because if you
Original
look
survival horror.
yeah.
I mean, we spent the last 3 or 4 years being like, oh, which version of this game is better on PS4, Xbox One, or PC? This was like
literally
completely
different games. Different development teams.
So that's
Yeah.
really cool. A lot of these games are very difficult, which I
Goof
love
Troop
about them.
sucks.
No, that's also Shinji Mikami. It's great.
it
It's,
really?
yeah, it's a
No, it's
two-player
good.
That's the
top-down.
one to get chased by the moose, isn't it?
Goof Troop is.
No, I'm thinking Mickey Mania.
Oh yeah, you're
That's
thinking
that
of
Crash
Mikami.
Bandicoot mission in Mickey Mania.
Yeah, that was David Jaffe's first game.
Yeah, it was. That's Mickey Mania is my jam. I love that game
Yeah.
so much.
No, Goof Trooper's good.
What did you do in Goof Troop?
It is top-down 2-player, and you're solving sort of single-screen puzzles. It's like almost like The Adventures of Lolo meets Link to the Past. You don't have any weapons to kill the enemies with, but you have grappling hooks, and you're like, yeah, it's really interesting.
So what I love
Weird if
about
they
these
had
games,
weapons though.
yeah,
It's like it would
They're
be
not a
weird,
literal
Yeah.
troop. They're a goof troop. They don't
No, I know
have
them.
guns or anything.
Yeah, but they have
They're
like
some funny boys.
yeah.
What I love
one of
about
them's
these
named
games-
Max.
They've got the
What I
perfect
love about these
cast.
games coming to PS4 for the first time is that these were never available on PlayStation in any capacity.
I mean, these were
are
barely
games that grew up on-
available. Like, I don't think Tailspin or Rescue Rangers 2 or Darkwing Duck are available on like
No,
virtual
I mean
console or anything.
nothing like that. And the closest we got was a couple years ago. There was Way Forward did a DuckTales remaster.
Yeah.
that was
Right.
kind of hit or miss. I appreciated the art direction and like the sort of like vault of cool like concept art and all that stuff. But they added some changes to it that were just not that great.
My fondest memory of that game was it was at whatever E3 probably like 2 years ago, and the Capcom booth was directly next to the Supergiant booth where Greg Kasavin was showing off Transistor, and I went over to play Transistor and talk with him, and all I could hear was bump bump bump, bump. And this was the Thursday of E3, and I'm like, yeah, that's pretty annoying. He's like, yeah, I've been here for 3 days and it hasn't stopped.
But life is like a hurricane.
I love that song so much, but I think I got sick of that booth and had to like walk away from it.
Yeah.
It was just too much.
Yeah, it's real bad.
Yeah, so I hope they do some cool stuff around this. I hope there's a cool physical release with some like extra stuff. The way they handled the Way Forward DuckTales remaster was really awesome. We had Stephen P. Lynn, who's a retro video game collector, on Up at Noon recently. He told us that the DuckTales like lunchbox that they shipped with that is like one of the more rare promo items of the last few years. So yeah, I mean, this is just a cool package. I think it's probably gonna be, what is it, $20 April 18th, so it's out in a
6
month.
games. Yeah.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
I
totally into
hope
that.
we get more of this, like more stuff that's sort of like the rare replay approach
From the vault,
where it's
yeah.
just a bundle of like old games. We kind of saw this with Star Wars games recently, where they just threw a bunch of them at you, and they were
Yeah.
like, hey, they're cheapo, and they've added a few things or whatever.
I'm sure there's like a rights debacle with it, but it seems like
Yeah.
Disney's getting a little bit better with that.
Yeah.
Music licensing is crazy hard.
Yeah.
And
That's
DuckTales
great.
ripped off that Hall & Oates song, so that's real.
Yep.
Oh
that's a
yeah,
rough
that's
one.
right. The one from 500 Days of Summer.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't created for that film because that film was from like 5 years ago, and the Hall & Oates were from the 1980s.
Yeah.
Weird. It's also in a lot of other movies.
Yeah.
That was a keynote in most Hall & Oates songs, where they had speech impediments and they said the danger.
All right, so speaking of old weird animals jumping and doing their things, Sonic the Hedgehog.
So tying it further into this episode, there's a race in Mass Effect Andromeda that kind of looks like Knuckles.
Oh, yeah.
No.
Oh
So
no!
one of my friends pointed it out.
Have you
and
made love
now
to
I
Dad
can't-
Echidna in space yet?
Can't, huh?
That Google Glass, we're in Space Echidna.
It's really bad, right?
That's
It's real weird to be like, after playing
I've seen it,
a bunch of like Mass Effect games, and there's a bunch of like weird ass artichoke looking aliens there, to see one to be like, no, thank you, I'll pass on that one. And like,
Yeah. Bring me the
what's wrong with
Krogan.
me? Bring me the sexy artichoke people. I want to see them.
Romance of Krogan.
Is the first Krogan you meet in the game a woman? Like the first Krogan I
First
met?
one? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I was like totally taken aback because I'm like, oh,
It's cool.
yeah, I guess it makes
There's
sense
so
that there's
many-
women.
Krogan
So
man.
one thing, I know going back to Mass Effect for a second, but there's like so many women of the races, which is nice because you didn't see a lot of them before in the original
Yeah, that's right.
trilogy. It took a while.
Right.
And so like you'll see a lot of female Solarians and Krogan.
That's awesome.
Turians.
Yeah.
I like it.
What about any females' tails? Like the
Yes.
details.
You can romance one of them.
could-
All right, so anyway,
Not the
back to
tails. Oh, the nipples. I mean.
back to Sonic the Hedgehog.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's two games coming out. There's these, what is it, Sonic Remix or something?
Sonic Mania.
Mania.
Yeah, so Sonic
Sorry.
Mania is
Is the thing that a lot of people have been diagnosed with.
yeah, it's Sonic Mania. Yeah, it was the follow up to Mickey Mania.
It's
Yeah.
caused them to draw many things.
Yeah, but Sonic Mania
looks
is
awesome.
Yeah, it's the 2D sort of like chop remake, like feels like Sonic 2.
Yeah, I played this at PSX, and I'm on record have said I'm not the biggest Sonic fan in the world. I'm sorry. There's probably food you don't like, but I'm not like, eat it. Just don't eat it. It's fine. But I played this one at PSX, and it's cool. It's definitely like
Yeah.
a step in the right direction. For me
Yeah,
personally.
especially considering like Sonic 4 episodes 1 and 2 and never in episode 3 and 4, I believe.
Yeah.
That was sort of, again, not a step in the right direction, but everyone who's played this seems to really dig it. But it got delayed. It was supposed to be spring, got delayed till summer. But then the follow up to that was they were like, well, we're sorry, but here's the first footage of Sonic 2017, which is now called Sonic Forces.
Oh, this is cute. Though we like to go fast, sometimes for a great game, you must also wait.
That was Sega's official statement. Yeah.
That's cute.
Yeah.
But I think it's really smart. We're talking about this and the fact that there's two different dimensions of nostalgia for this. There's the 2D
Literally,
and then there's
yeah.
the 3D. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're like, what do you try to appeal to, you know?
So my memories of Sonic is going to the dentist's office and playing Sonic, like the 3D version.
Oh,
At
really?
the dentist.
At the
Like, they
dentist?
Are
always
you
had
sure
it.
that wasn't like a Sonicare?
No, every dentist I've ever been to has had at the kids station. They've had a Sonic.
He does sound a lot like a drill when he speeds up.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, he is. Yeah, you are revving it
without
up.
fail.
Like
I
the
don't know
Sonic
why.
Adventure games, or like the ones after that.
I don't remember.
You know that Dr. Robotnik is not a licensed medical professional, right?
They just want to prepare you.
Yeah. Every time she leaves, instead of giving like a sucker, they just give you an egg. Here's an egg. Weird. Enjoy it.
Yeah, but no, Max, you're totally right. I mean, like, if you look at our generation, we grew up with the 2D Sonic games, and then somebody who's younger grew up with Sonic Adventure and stuff like
Yeah.
that on Dreamcast and GameCube.
They want like a Sonic the Hedgehog who carries a gun, and
rolling
will
around
kiss
at
a
the
real
speed
human
of
woman.
sound. Yeah, that whole thing. They're crazy for that. And for us, it's dun 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 dun.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I just remember playing on Xbox 360.
not Sonic 2007, was it?
I
There
don't
was a game called
remember.
Sonic the
Sonic the
Hedgehog.
Hedgehog.
Probably.
That was the one where he
I just had one with
he had a
Shadow.
relationship with a woman. There was Shadow the Hedgehog who had guns.
I just wanted to play Shadow.
There was one where
That was cool.
Sonic was dating a real
That
life
was
human.
strange.
Yeah, he became a wolf with wolf arms.
Oh yeah, the wolf
that felt
one.
like the end of Blank Check, where that
Didn't
like
play that
8-year-old boy like tongue kisses a 30-year-old woman, and you're like, oh,
that's
why
horrible.
are you doing that?
Yeah.
But no, I think it's really good to. I don't even know how you go from that sentence to
fine.
anything else, but like they're basically sort of double dipping and kind of they're separating these two separate things. Like they've got there's the weird 3D gritty thing that I look at it and I'm like, that's not for me, and that's fine. And then there's the Mania, which looks like, oh, that looks like fun. Like,
Yeah,
I wanna-
it's like
Yeah.
cutesy platforming. It's fun.
And
It's like
it's both of these genres are getting we're in the midst of a good resurgence of them. Like the 2D games, like ever since Shovel Knight, it's like, hey, people can play 2D games and enjoy them in 2017. Like it can sit right alongside Uncharted and The Last of Us. And then for the 3D ones, like 3D character platformers are back in vogue. From I'm playing Ukulele right now for review. You guys got to play Snake Pass.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about that real
yeah,
quick,
totally.
actually. So speaking of, colorful platforming games that remind me of the sort of N64 Dreamcast era, Max and I just did a Let's Play for a game called Snake Pass with the devs, and they're making a game that's sort of inspired by and evocative of that sort of Rareware era 3D platformer. It's coming to PS4, Xbox One, Switch, and PC. But it's a game about a colorful cartoon snake who has to collect things.
I love
but
snakes.
He doesn't. Yeah, they're great.
so
That's.
cute.
I was saying before it's top 5 animal. Max disagreed.
What? Yeah, I don't agree.
They're so cute.
Snakes are not cute.
They're fine.
Yeah, you also think those little Bloodborne messengers are cute.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're adorable. They just want to help you. Just hold your stuff.
those like Hot Topic Kodamas, like with it.
It's all babies.
There's like little hands
I
like.
put them in a flower
There's like
pot and carry it
stillborn
with
Funko
it
Pops.
everywhere.
What? Those awful
Be
things.
great.
It's like a sick Groot.
Yeah, it's like a sick baby Groot. Yeah.
Charlie is cute.
Yeah. So Snake Pass is probably the first game I've ever played where you're controlling a 3D snake and it feels like there's an actual momentum and a movement to the way you're coiling around.
Yeah, you have to like slither back and forth,
Yeah.
like slalom sort of.
Yeah.
So I like when I first heard about this, I think somebody pitched it as, oh, it's like a 3D platformer. It's not. It's a physics game.
Yeah.
Like this started with a tech demo of like a piece of rope that fell on the ground, and he's like, rope on the ground looks an awful lot like a snake. I might be kind of editorializing here, I
think you
but
absolutely are.
basically,
Yeah.
like, I mean, the mechanics are. It feels like a 3D Hohokam kind of like you're moving around and you're trying to collect stuff, but there's a level of like gravity to it. You're not just like this flying like whatever the hell windsock that thing was in that game.
Yeah, it was a windsock.
Was it a windsock? Okay. Well, in this case, you're a snake, which is a much more familiar concept.
It's a ground sock. Yeah.
Yeah, floor socks they're called. But
Isn't
yeah.
it just a sock?
Yeah, I think that's just a sock.
Yeah, that's a good
usually.
point. So
Yeah.
you're,
Ground
you're actually a
socks.
snake, which is the sock of the animal kingdom, nature's leg.
It can like hook on the legs.
Yeah, that's true.
Just eat 'em.
But I mean, I love because you look at it
Hey,
and you're like,
hold on. Nature's leg is the leg.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I don't know what you're
I think
saying.
legs are nature's legs.
no. So anyway, Snake Pass is coming out really soon. It comes out like what, next week?
Next week.
Yeah,
Next Friday.
It's $20. It's
Yeah.
what's really cool about it is it's incredibly like, I don't say this a lot. It's really chill.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, you can't. You can't.
There's no like
die.
enemies. You
There's
can
no
like fall off a
enemies.
ledge. Like
You can
dumb
fall off a
dude.
ledge, but there's no combat. There's no like vicious death animations.
Yeah.
There's no boss fights. It is just like these playgrounds that you kind of weave and coil around in and collect things. And doing so unlocks the next level. And there's 15 stages. It's $20. Super relaxed.
Yeah.
It completely plays different than anything I've ever controlled. Like anything, and it's very rare to this many decades into video games to be like, oh, they made a new thing. You know, everything feels so iterative of something else that this is just like it feels.
Sometimes it
completely
is, and sometimes it isn't. I feel like there's stuff that I mean, there's tons of old games. Like there's the old cell phone game Snake, where you play as a snake, and it's easy to be like, oh, like mechanically, that's the most advanced snake we've seen. And then it's like, yeah, but what if you took like modern technology and applied that to that.
Yeah.
You
Right,
know? And this
right.
makes me, of course, I'm like, it's great that we get this like really cute little like the snake. If he like gets scared, he's just like
Yeah.
His name's Noodle, and he's got a sidekick named Doodle, who's a hummingbird.
Oh
with
yeah, you can
eagle
hit the
eyes.
button where like if you're sort of falling, Doodle will come in and like pick up your ass and like
he'll
get
pick
you,
up
he'll get you up there.
pick up
It's not really,
Yeah,
I
it's
don't
really-
think- I don't think it's an ass. It's,
Yeah.
it's the end of the snake.
I mean, yeah,
I think it's called the conclusion. Is the end of the snake.
it's called the full stop.
But no, like it's I love that we're getting this, and now I hope that somebody goes in and they're like, yeah, this is pretty good, but I want to make a super violent game where you're an anaconda and you go around eating like Ice Cube and John Boy.
So apparently, like the lead creator of this game had pet snakes, and for a while wanted to make a realistic snake game, and then was like, you know what? Let's like take the movement and keep it realistic, but the part where like they eat a pig and turn into the shape of it and molt their disgusting skin and leave it on the floor like a threat, we're not going to do that stuff.
It's probably a good
I
idea.
was like, that's probably a good idea. And if you think about like the simulation games we've gotten, like Goat Simulator, and then you look at like on the iOS store, we were in this very long, boring meeting a couple of years ago here at IGN, and I got this game called like it was like Stray Dog Simulator.
Oh,
That was
yeah.
great. And I was playing it on my phone, and it's just like there's like a poop button, and you can go and pee on the man's leg and stuff. You know, the leg of the natural kingdom. And I was like, well, this is a very shoddy, crappy way to handle like sort of like a day in the life of an animal. And I like the idea of them taking this in a different direction, making it fantasy driven and making it fun and quirky and non-combative. You know?
Yeah, what's funny though is we got a game like Goat Simulator, which is like it's called Simulator. It's not. I'm not going to say realistic, but it.
Oh,
like,
no.
It's not.
Aesthetically, it goes for
What?
more.
Plenty
of
of goats commit suicide off of a
They
Ferris
also
wheel.
become demons.
Yeah, they also
All the
also-
time.
visually, it's more realistic. Like they're aiming for like a layer of it's not cartoony.
Sure.
But then the stuff you do in it is not remotely realistic. Not,
Okay.
Not at
Yeah.
all grounded.
Okay.
And then on the other hand, we've got this game that's about being a snake, and it's like this cartoon snake, but it totally moves like a real snake does.
Sure, yeah.
Which is kind of an odd like dichotomy there.
And he's
and
got
it's-
emote buttons on the D-pad.
Yeah,
where
it's
he
really
can,
cute.
He can just be like, yeah.
So cute.
He'll just look at the screen and he'll just be like, nah.
He's like, it's me. This
It kind of reminds me of like the old like Ren and Stimpy, like Jimmy the Idiot guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's just
Yeah.
like, like where are your
It's-
teeth? What are you doing in
It's
there?
really good.
It's the developed by Sumo Digital, who handled Little Big Planet 3.
So
Yeah.
there's another game coming out really soon on the 20th called Rain World, which is also another platform
Yes.
that I wanted to bring
Stop
up
it.
because I'm really excited for it because it's a slug cat.
Yes, it is a slug
So
cat. Thank you.
cute.
Called it.
I
What's
said
a-
it wasn't a slug cat last week's episode.
Yeah, and I felt
totally
like
is.
you were trying to gaslight
I
me.
wasn't trying to gaslight you.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, but
So
wait, do you
cute.
know more about
Hold
the
it.
game than we did? Because that was as much as we knew about the game.
It's very pretty
Yeah.
and it's a platformer and you can die a lot. And that's what I know. and I
think
played
that's-
it once and I was really excited about it.
I think it's the first game in the like spring of arcade or whatever they're calling it, spring showcase, which includes like everything, which is we'll talk about next week, which is the crazy Double Fine produced game where you go from being a molecule to a galaxy.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Oh, well, last quick sort of housekeeping plug thing, but there's an awesome sale going on the PlayStation Store right now for stuff like Journey, Until Dawn.
Oh, it's all
We were
first
talking-
party.
It's all first party stuff.
Or Sony published stuff.
Yeah, so everything's or most of the stuff that Sony's published over the last few years.
Yeah,
you can
Until
get
Dawn's
for
like $10, which you should totally pick up. That's
crazy
like such
cheap.
a fun party.
Yeah.
game.
I remember. I think they did this like a year ago with like The Order, and it was going for like $5 or $10. And
Totally
a bunch
worth
of people were like, "Yeah, that's a great price to fly through something like that."
Yeah.
So if there's something you sort of ignored or slept on, jump on that.
Yeah. Now it's time for Rapid Fire, which is the segment of the program in which we take questions from our fine users at facebook.com/group/podcastbeyond, and then we answer them. That's how it
Groups.com.
works. Groups.com/clouds.net.
Nope. Not a real thing.
At IGN.org. Oliver May asks, with Microsoft launching the Scorpio at the end of the year and Nintendo just having brought out the Switch, what do you think Sony's next move will be? And do you think they will have a new console at E3?
Absolutely not.
No. Here's my prediction is they bundle Horizon with the Pro this fall, and they just keep pumping out awesome games and keep making great deals with strong third parties for exclusive stuff. I think that's probably so here's the thing. Microsoft is obviously going to leverage the power of Scorpio to bring third parties over and really hit home that their games look better on Scorpio than it does on PS4 Pro. But I think Sony's got the leverage of 50 plus million install base of the PS4, and they can basically say, yeah, but Call of Duty should still give their first DLC to us early and exclusive. This is going to get into a sort of like greedy numbers game, and I think Microsoft is probably going to end up in a phone call bidding war with stuff like Activision and EA and say, hey, you're making Battlefront, like make Battlefront look best on Scorpio. But on PS4, it's going to be like, hey, 55 million people own a PS4, or 60 by then. Play there where you'll always be able to connect with another player. So I think they just keep hitting home on first party stuff. I think we're going to find out more about totally blanking on it, the zombie game.
Days Gone.
Days Gone.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we'll probably get a release date for that. I'm hoping for this fall. And probably a release date for the new Uncharted stuff as well.
Yeah, which will also probably be this fall.
You think so? Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's great. I mean, that's two stuff that's two games that are basically exclusive coming through them. Yeah, they'll play what they've always been playing, which is a strong, robust library of first and third party games, and just kicking ass with that.
I like
They'll
how
be
you
okay.
said library like a Southern judge.
Library, a strong, robust library of
A
first and
delicious
third party
library
games.
plucked from the bush.
Now I'm gonna
I'll say.
get in my hammock and drink a
just-
nice peach tea.
I really hope they take a look back
Yeah.
and notice the Vita and say, "We've noticed you,"
Yeah.
That'd be cool.
and then
Yeah.
lift it up and give it a platform at E3.
Yeah, we've been talking about
Yeah,
we've been talking
seriously.
about this here and there on the show. We all love our Switch here. Did you end up getting one?
Switch?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, day one.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's a fantastic platform, right? And I think the idea of plugging into your TV and then leaving and playing it somewhere else is really cool. And like the Vita was just there. It was
Yeah.
so
It was a
close.
prototype of that idea, pretty much.
So I mean, again, I say this every week, but like, I really want that to be a thing that Sony does because I want, like the Switch is awesome for Zelda and Snipper Clips and I'll play Snake Pass on there because that's a cool game to bring anywhere. But the idea of them making games on the level that they make them in their own way and making those portable everywhere. I can't imagine playing something like Uncharted 4 on a PS4 Pro or Horizon on a portable without it bursting into flames.
Right.
Yeah.
But
But
we're going to get there in our lifetimes,
I mean, yeah, like I would love to be able to play Persona 5 on a Switch or on a Sony like Switch handheld device where the screen is big and beautiful and bright.
It's going to be really strange not playing Persona on a Vita.
On a handheld.
Oh yeah, I mean totally.
I only
'Cause-
played it on my Vita. It's
yeah,
the first game I played.
Yeah, Golden.
So
I
yeah.
wish they did some like they put out just a new version of a Vita that only accentuated its remote play functions and just made it so you could bring it anywhere.
Yeah.
Like it's effectively a new SKU, but I mean mostly
Yeah.
just the same system.
The thing is, I just want dating sims because
Yeah.
the Vita has a lot of dating sims.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's a new one coming out soon. Yay.
it's perfect for
happy
that.
looking?
There are a lot of those on
So,
there.
yeah, I don't know. I think it's just a great place for them to import more or maybe focus development because like anime is a big thing and it's constantly growing. And it's like, hey,
Do you think we'll
still-
hear about the Vita at E3 in any
oh
way?
no.
No.
There's always that count of how many times it gets said. But last year, between E3 and PSX, I remember like it got mentioned a bunch, which was
I
Yeah.
thought it didn't.
I don't think
Really?
at E3, not
Not
during
at
the
E3.
conference.
No.
Not during the conference.
I look for it.
I mean,
was
also
one where
there was.
Gio Corsi came out and just kept repeating the word Vita.
like-
Also on Vita,
I
it
feel like that was
awesome.
like 3.5 years ago.
Well, time is a flat circle.
Yeah, so I will keep
Nope.
pushing, but I
Time
don't
is a
feel
straight
dating
line.
with it.
Circle is a button on the PS4.
So, real quick, what's a dating sim you recommend for Vita?
What was it? Hakuoki? Yeah.
Or no, like what
Demon of
are?
the
If
Hidden
like someone wants to
Flowers?
get into dating sims,
Yeah.
like ground floor. of-
Hakuoki
Oh,
is
is that
a
it?
beautiful game. It's about the Warring States era, and so you date a bunch of samurai.
Nice.
It's really good.
Then there's the
seem-
bird
they
one.
It's for boy. You're dating boys though. Oh, and there's also the bird one, sure. Which if you want something weird and it's actually incredibly good, you have to play it a few times. The thing
Yeah.
is, dating.
Oh,
sims,
that
you-
game
you
gets
play it
crazy.
multiple
Yeah, the
times.
second loop,
Oh.
that game gets nuts.
So yeah, if
It
you want
gets crazy.
if you want to
Yeah.
make love to a samurai in an ancient times or a bird in a high school, the PlayStation Vita is the only
Aren't you a
place
bird?
to play.
Aren't you a bird who dates girls?
That's a great
No,
Vita ad.
you're a girl
wonder why
who
it's
dates
struggle
birds. Yeah, so that one's How to Full Boyfriend. It's also on PS4.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then the other one's
What does Hatoful
Hakuoki.
mean?
Hateful.
It's actually a play on the name of the person who wrote it, and it's also hateful.
Oh wow.
Kind of
Real weird.
Angry ass birds.
There's a
Pigeons
lot
are
of
not a
emotion.
great. That's not. Pigeon's not a top 5. animal.
Speaking of birds, Nick Chevalier asks, "What are some of your favorite Easter eggs in games?"
Oh man.
Eggs comes from birds.
I was like, speaking of birds.
Yeah, speaking of birds, that
okay.
worked out really well. Not really an Easter egg. Last year, I loved Nate and Elena sitting down to play Crash Bandicoot.
Oh yeah.
I thought that was really cute, and like the banter between them as like Nate is not good at video games.
The
which I find-
banter.
the band, yeah,
Yeah,
the
I like that.
I like the like built-in like Easter eggs and secret things in Banjo-Kazooie and Banjo-Tooie.
Yep.
Like where it was a failed experiment of you would be able to take a cartridge out and put the next game in, and they're like the memory can't. This is N64. We can't handle it.
I always really love that moment in Ocarina of Time where you go to meet the princess in Hyrule Castle and then you can be like, well, thanks. And you look through her windows and there's just like paintings of Mario and Luigi and Peach. And you're like, oh, you know those dudes?
I thought LucasArts always did a really good job. They'd always
Yeah.
have an outline of Max's head from Sam and Max somewhere.
Yeah.
And sometimes it would be like a secret cavern in like the Hoth level of Dark Forces or something.
yeah.
What was the open world? Was it a Far Cry game or Just Cause where they put the hatch from Lost?
Oh,
Did you remember that? Was that
Yeah,
think it was
yeah.
three,
That would make
Yeah.
more
Yeah,
sense.
a couple
yeah.
years ago,
Yeah.
I remember that. It was really cool. I
Yeah.
love little
There's
nods
in
like
Doom. I think when you're in hell, you can find the skeleton of the Fusro Da dude from
Yep.
Skyrim.
Aw.
Yeah. No, he's dead and he's in hell. Don't awe that.
I really love
Went
that.
somewhere,
Like,
it's fine.
Or in Duke
there
Nukem
was-
3D, you can
It's
find
really
the
annoying.
you can find the Doom guy. And
Yeah,
he's like,
in-
oh, it's one doomed space marine.
in Far Cry Primal, there's a glowing skeleton of a blood dragon,
That's so cool.
like in just like this hidden purple cave, and you don't really get anything out of it, and you can't walk up to it, but it's like just cool that it's there. I love stuff
Ubisoft
like
does
that.
a good job with that.
Yeah.
Laurier Hebert Jourdouin says,
nice work.
Wow.
Trying. Asks, owning a Switch has considerably lessened the enjoyment I get from gaming on PS4. I keep thinking I wish I could undock this and play on the go. Have you also felt that? Do you wish more console would go this way in the future?
I mean, we sort of talked about that. Like, I really like playing the Switch on my handheld.
Yeah.
Like,
But I think I don't want that for every console.
no, totally.
And I think it's fine that the Switch is doing this.
I think
and
they're
they
taking
should-
baby steps with remote play, not just through Vita, but through PC.
Yeah.
And PlayStation TV, which they were trying to do for a little while, it just became like this very cumbersome. I couldn't get it to work from room to room in my apartment. But I remember playing Battlefront, not well, but connecting to Battlefront like from my parents' house in New Jersey to my PS4 in San Francisco, which was like
It's crazy.
it's so cool. Like,
Yeah.
and again, it's choppy and it's slow and it's not getting there, but it's baby steps, right?
Yeah, and one of the things I love about handheld games is even playing them at home. Like, if I'm doing something where I don't have to pay 100% attention, I like doing that and like having a TV show on in the background.
Yeah.
Like, I'm doing that for like random shrines in Zelda and like grinding in RPGs, but I don't want to play Uncharted like that. I don't want to play The Last of Us like that. Like, I want to pay attention to the story and the world and the characters.
It's like taking a look at Gravity Rush, like them moving from the Vita to PS4 was absolutely the right decision.
Yeah.
Totally.
So-
yeah, even the remaster of 1, like, it felt so
Yeah.
much better on PS4 than it did on Vita.
Cameron O'Neill asks, how do you as reviewers and game lovers balance enjoying a game that is just okay versus not enjoying an objectively good game? I didn't love Bloodborne, but I understand why the game is objectively good. It seems like with Mass Effect Andromeda drama, hey-oh, people are confounding an enjoyable game with a good game.
I don't think you can say objectively good. Like,
So, I mean, like, I don't like The Witness at
Yeah.
all. It's not my kind of game. But I can appreciate...
I wasn't crazy about it either.
Yeah, I can appreciate why people enjoy it and what's to love about it. I think there's a level of level-headedness that anybody can have of saying, I see why this is great,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I personally don't like it. Or it's not my kind of game. Like, there's things, we all have preferences, and
like
that's
I
totally
couldn't,
fine.
I can't get into like Overwatch, but I totally understand why the people who are into Overwatch,
Which is
love
why
it.
we'd never have you review Overwatch.
Yeah,
because
exactly.
You don't
Right.
play those kinds of games. Like,
Yeah.
that's not where your
And
expertise
yeah,
lies.
I think there's a value to having an outsider perspective on a review every now and then, but to have somebody who just objectively does not like a thing to come in and review a thing, like, hey, it's Mr. Bully here to poop on Overwatch. Like, there's no value to that.
Well,
Yeah.
it's like with old teachers, they'd be like, oh, why is this the thing? Explain why or why not. Use complete sentences.
Yeah.
In this case, like, I think the core of good criticism is, why is this good? Why is this bad? Explain. Just get into it.
And I think that like there's this idea now that you have to love everything that like the Metacritic or Rotten Tomatoes has deemed to be great. Whereas I mean, like I look at something like Fallout 4. When those reviews started rolling in, I do the thing where I'm like, I walk out of a game I was 25, 30 hours into that game before I put it down. And I was like, this is not for me. I don't see this getting higher than like 8s anywhere because it's just such a mess in so many ways to me personally. And the reviews rolled in and it was like 9s, 9.5s, 10s. And I was like, oh, like I just don't have my finger on the pulse of this. And
Everything's
sometimes-
not for everyone.
Yeah, not everything's not for everyone. Like, I mean, we all saw Logan together, and Max walked out, and he's like, "I really liked it," and you and me were like, I liked some of it."
Yeah.
But then I went into Rotten Tomatoes, and I was like, "This is one of the highest reviewed movies of the year,
Yeah.
one of the highest reviewed comic book movies of all time." I see why it works. I see why people love it. But for me personally, I had some issues with it, and I'm able to detach that from my enjoyment. And I can also just be like, "Well, yeah, then I won't buy the Blu-ray." Or I
Also,
won't keep
I'm
playing
glad
Fallout.
you enjoyed it. I want people
Yeah.
I like to enjoy
I didn't love
things.
it. I was like, this is all right.
You said it was the best movie you've ever seen.
yeah.
I didn't. I said it was the best X-Men movie in the last 5 years, which is like that is the best.
You said
dog
move
food
over, a
sandwich
river
I've had
runs
since
through it.
prison.
Yeah.
There's a new river in town.
Well, I said it was high art next to X-Men Apocalypse, but that's not saying much.
Oh, that was a bad film with the purple man.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say like Horizon. That is a fantastic, wonderful game that I just wasn't into.
Sure.
Yeah. And I was like, I played it far enough to be like, I hear the guts. I understand what it's doing. I totally recognize that as an actual like technical masterpiece, but it wasn't for me. And it's
So what I see a lot, and what kind of keeps us employed, and that will hopefully let you, if you're listening, if you have any sort of like interest in ever becoming somebody who speaks or writes or talks about anything critically, is that I think there's a nuanced difference between being like, Max didn't like this game because of this reason, this reason, this reason, but he did like this and he tried this and this didn't work, to I see a lot of people who are just like, that thing sucks. Like,
What does that mean?
Yeah.
okay.
Are you
Yeah.
sure?
But I mean,
Yeah.
it's like, maybe you're right, but like,
What does
you
that
know,
mean? There's a lot of
expand on
different
that a
types of
little
sucks.
bit. Yeah. Or they're just like, it is a bad game. And I'm like, well, no, it's not. I don't have to cite just a number, a percentage on a aggregate review website.
Yeah, it's like when I started, I actually had to review bad games.
Right.
So I know
got
what a
the
bad
same
game
thing
is.
where they made me like earn.
Yeah.
Like I wanted to review a Zelda game back in the day, and they're like, oh, you haven't earned that yet. And I was like, what does that mean? You know? What was it? What games did you start? Do you remember what your first review was for IGN?
The first review I did as a freelancer. I don't remember exactly what it was called. It was some online Xbox game that was like Tower Defense-y or something. I forget what it was. But then my next one was How to Full Boyfriend because that's what I asked for.
Oh,
I got
nice.
to
There you
review
go.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
One for them,
That
one for
worked.
you.
Dan was
Yeah.
just like, I don't want to date the birds. So there
I was like, no, dating birds is way more complex than you think.
Yeah.
And it really is, guys. Trust
it's like
me. Just
XCOM,
play
but
it.
with bird
You can't.
dating.
You know why? You can't bring them anywhere.
Well, you know what? If you
Still
love them, they
everything.
fly away.
It's true. If
Or
you love
maybe
something, let
they're
it fly
actually
away.
dead. You
Unless
never
it's
know.
a bird.
Who knows?
So you can't actually release
Oh
it.
no!
Jalen Matthews asks, with the always successful fall launches and the seemingly successful spring launches, do y'all think we'll soon see the end of the summer drought in terms of games, or do you think dev studios just don't feel inclined to release big games during the summer?
I think all bets are off with that stuff these days.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, never
the
know.
way we see. So the interesting thing on that is that we used to see games traditionally released in one quarter, and the reason that would happen was because that's when the most spending happens, and when that loops back around to the way the fiscal year ends. With the sort of scope and massive games now, they get delayed constantly, and they've gotten delayed into spring and early winter so often now, and those delays have been rewarded with incredible sales. We just got sales numbers on Horizon; it's over 2.5 million. Zelda is they've doubled or tripled the
the highest
expectations
attach
for the
rate,
Switch. And you lose a couple of things here and there too, right? Like Resident Evil did really well, but I think it's like never up to snuff for what
Yeah.
they wanted. We're going to start seeing games that were supposed to come out in the fall, that were then supposed to come out in the spring, get moved to summer, and probably sell exceptionally well. I think there's no time of year now where there isn't an audience and there isn't a market to make money.
And I mean, May through August right now, games we know are coming out, are slated to come out, are stuff like Injustice and Prey and the Crash Bandicoot trilogy and South Park and Shadow of War. And like, those are big games.
Yeah, and I mean, different publishers will kind of stake out different times of the year, partially because of fiscal quarters and whatnot, but also I think because they're like, this is our slot,
Yeah.
this is when we're doing to do it. And
Well,
there's also
look at-
you also see games that come out in like January, February, and then
Look at For Honor. It topped the NPD. And you're like, how did you do that? Like, I mean, that didn't, anecdotally, like I played that game for a while and I had some good times with it, but I did not expect that game to be the best selling game of that
February,
month.
yeah.
You know,
who's playing that? You're like, oh,
yeah,
well,
like
there's
I
some
mean,
people.
it's just it got in right before Horizon and Zelda, and right after the holiday season, and people were like, I beat my game from December, or I got these like GameStop fun bucks I want to spend, and like all that funnels right back in. So I think like what we want to see is more stuff like that, because then we get less situations like the Tomb Raider Fallout Day, or the like Ubisoft puts out
Also,
2 games in the same weekend.
Just for us working, it's really nice and they're spread out.
Yeah.
But like right now, it feels like fall for me.
Oh,
Like
totally.
how much I've been working, like the capacity is ridiculous.
yeah.
Which
That's
is
also the scope of the
cool,
games too
but-
that you're covering.
Yeah, because these are all, like we mentioned, Zelda and Horizon, but then also Mass Effect and Persona are giant, like 50-plus hour games.
It's been nonstop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, luckily after Persona, it seems like everything chills out a little bit for a little while.
Yeah, and it'd be a nice time to catch up. Like, sure, people want things in the summer drought, but I kind of don't, because that's like a great time to catch up on old games or replay something you really
I haven't.
love.
I barely put time to Neo and Nier, and like I
Do you
want to play
guys
those.
Yeah.
do you guys think that games that were released like early this year, around now or last few months, are we're going to get like Game of the Year releases in the holiday season, or is it like stacked like that? Because
Yeah.
we kind of saw that with Tomb Raider when it came to PS4. They were like, okay, here's the full package. Here's all the bits and pieces.
Well, that was specifically like a legal licensing exclusivity.
sure,
deal.
sure. But
I mean,
I mean, you also see it
I
with
could
like,
totally see the Resident Evil 7 Game of the Year that has like the birthday DLC and all that stuff
Yep,
bundled in and coming out in October or November to be like, hey, remember this game that everyone loved in January?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at award season for any medium, it's sometimes the blind spot is that first 3 or 4 months of the year. Like it's very seldom that people really like when we sit down this fall. you might have to like jog some memories to be like, well, what about Resident Evil 7?
Yeah, but
what
I
about
mean,
Neo,
we did
you
a really
know?
good job of that last year. I mean, The Witness and Firewatch and Oxenfree.
We're all
and even
early,
like,
right?
yeah, those are all the first like 2 months.
We have a good system in place to make sure we don't forget those things.
Yeah.
Like we've been way
called a
better.
calendar.
Yeah, about saying, hey, remember this great game? Let's put this on a list now.
We also have
So you-
people who like champion those games year round.
Yeah.
And so that helps is like last year, like when fall came, like I was beating the Witness drum super hard.
Right. Because I know that we have this giant Red Dead shaped object landing this fall, and that's going to consume a massive portion of the conversation.
I don't think anyone this fall is going to be like, hey guys, remember Zelda came out this year? I think we'll be fine because I'll still be like, oh, I have 197 shrines left in this
All
game.
I'll say is that this will be a fantastic fall for video game debates.
Oh my God.
Like, last year I was kind of like, well, yeah, I'm not, I wasn't madly in love with
Something
The
was
Witness
missing.
either, and
Yeah,
that was
it
up
was
there.
just-
And I didn't truly connect with Overwatch either, and those were our two big guns on IGNs for Game of the Year. But this year, man, there's
You
just
could already
so-
flesh out a list of 10.
I could do Game of the Year today.
It's going to be really hard.
Yeah.
It's going to be a lot of fights and long meetings.
Yeah. And like
We're
we
gonna
haven't
have more than
seen
one.
what Destiny 2 and Battlefront 2 and Call of Duty even
God.
look like. We haven't we barely got a glimpse of Mario.
Give us a
We got a
second,
30-second
please.
trailer for Red Dead.
Arms.
Stop.
Arms.
We're not
Arms
talking
is
about
good.
arms.
Yeah.
Knack 2.
Knack 2.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're getting that
Remember
this year.
They announced at E3.
Yeah.
And then Mario?
Yeah, Mario.
Mario?
Did you know you're doing the guide?
man.
You're doing the guide for Knack 2. Did you know that?
Yeah.
All right.
No.
Well, we need to go take long
I am not
naps.
doing that.
Knack naps. There is a Power Rangers red carpet. I'm looking at the wrong camera again. There it is. Hello there. Hi, good to see you.
Hey, baby.
Joshua and Terry from our LA team are going to be hosting a Power Rangers red carpet live stream thing that is live on the 22nd.
That's tomorrow or today, I guess, if this is up now.
No, it's tomorrow. Or it's
But
one
that's today.
Don't ever say you don't. You know I don't do well with the tenses. That is Wednesday, 6:15 p.m. Pacific time, 1 hour. So if you download this episode fast enough, get on there. They're going to have Bill Hader, the voice of Alpha 5, Elizabeth Banks, Rita Repulsa herself, and all the titular Rangers of Power. Marty wrote that.
You don't know
Max
that?
and Brian are hosted. We hosted one of these for, you wrote like 5 X's. We
Well,
did
what
the
was that
Triple
movie
X
called?
live stream one.
What was that movie called?
There's 3 X's, not 5.
Triple X Return of the Xander, or
Okay.
Xander
That had 4 X's.
Xander Cage.
Xander Cage Town.
Anyway,
Cage is spelled with an
you can
X.
watch that on IGN, YouTube, Twitch, Funster, and Blarm. You can't write stuff like that because I will read it.
I'm Ron Burgundy.
Exactly what I was thinking about.
Thank you for watching. We will see you guys next week. We're all on Twitter. I'm Max Scoville. He's Agent Bizzle. You're McBiggity. And you're Havoc Rose.
Yep.
Cool. All right. That's it. Goodbye.
Bye.
Beyond.